Yeah, I'll tell you the difference between 17-year-olds and 12-year-olds is that 17-year-olds, they actually tell you why you're a fool, but they're very articulate about it. Sort of unfortunate. Listen, it seems funny to me to like stand there and have you look here and then stand there. So I'm going to stand right here, and that may or may not make it easier to people. You know, it's funny. I've actually presented in Chicago a number of times. I came here. I'll never forget the story. I came here one time. It was a really cold winter, and it was a weird event. Like it was one of those like I was late and out of LaGuardia, and so the plane was delayed, and then you have that horrible drive-in from the airport. Please fix it. Really, just so annoying. And so you drive in. It's like a New Yorker. I come here to tell you how to fix your city. Okay. So I drive in, and it was weird because I come into the event like as if it was behind this curtain, and I end up on stage. Like I hadn't seen the room, I'd been late, and I stepped up on stage, and there was one guy sitting in the front of the room. And I thought, well, this is weird. So I thought, well, I mean, I'm here, I'm paid to be here, I may as well just go ahead and do my speech. So I did my whole speech in 20, 30 minutes. I sort of finish, he stands up, gives me a little round of applause. I thought, well, this is weird, like it's so formal. And I went down and I said, well, listen, thank you, it's been a really long trip, I'm really tired. I think I'm gonna leave. He says, no, you're not, I'm the next speaker. So there you go. Well, I almost think I heard somebody hiss, I didn't say Trump believes in women's rights or anything. You can't boo me for that, right? Sorry, you have to read the news to get what that was all about. Listen, here's the thing. I have 17-year-old daughters. They know this is true. The world has changed dramatically right in front of us at a rapid rate, faster than even I could have imagined. And listen, I've been doing internet and digital now for over 20 years. I was the first head of Y&R's interactive unit way back in the 90s, and I came here to Chicago to build a business called Cars.com many years ago. My daughters don't know even what a newspaper is or what its purpose is. They haven't used one unless it lined the bottom of a birdcage. They know nothing about it. And the world has shifted in a way that's more dramatic than even we could imagine. So here's what I want to share with you today. I want to just introduce the MMA so you understand the perspective I'm coming from. I also want to talk a little bit about why my board thinks you all want to be super engaged in multi-touch attribution. I'm going to back it up with a little bit of data. Let me just get a qualifier. How many of you are from work in marketing or major marketers, like the Walmarts, the J&Js? Number of you? A few of you? One in the back. That's it, really? So only, okay, we got a couple at that table. Well, then this is going to be really boring to you. Well, we'll figure that out. I also want to talk a little bit about what the MMA is doing about this. As a trade group, it is my job to lean into a future. That's why people get together. Same reason you're here, in essence. But as an organizational design, I'm all about helping my members try to see into that future and then activate against it. And that's some of what I want to share with you today. Now, just to qualify us, this is my board of directors on the left and the right. Buy side on the left, marketers, sell side on the right. We are fortunate to have some of the world's biggest, greatest, smartest, hopefully, marketers in the world working with us, from GM to T-Mobile to Allstate, Chobani, et cetera, et cetera. And they're looking to us for some of that guidance. So understand that I work for the people on the left, which means I have to tell the truth all the time. I have no solution other to sell than what we think is better evolved world. That's the full board if you're interested to know. Now, they came to us in part because they believe, why is Tim Mahoney at General Motors? I mean, mobile can't be more than 5% of his entire life, if even that within General Motors, maybe more, I'm not really sure. But why is he taking the time? Well, because most of us, I think, believe that mobile is probably the greatest transformation we may see in our lifetime, in particular around consumer behavior. It is a seismic shift in how we consume content, connect with communities, do commerce, and so on, and so on. And it has an understanding of that world in ways that we've never seen today. Now, that would all be pretty easy and effective. And in fact, if I could get you to kind of roll this tape, they all come to me, great, so they always just all listen to what I say to do, kind of like this commercial sort of captures that in kids trying to talk into a cell phone. Can we run that video? You're looking at me. No, you're not supposed to look at me.
Mom, I think it's time I got my own cell phone.
Phones are expensive. Wouldn't you rather get a tattoo?
Dad, I think it's time I got my own cell phone.
I think it's time you got a job.
Dad, can I have my own cell phone?
Worried your kids will run up a huge wireless bill?
Okay, I think you get the idea. So here's the thing. A few years ago, about 4 years ago, in fact, I went to the board and I said, and I had been brought in to take over the organization that had kind of lost its way. It was a little misdirected, financially challenged. Businesses get that way, small and big ones, we did. And so I went to the board and I says, listen, if you don't come up with a very solid ROI analysis of mobile, the channel is likely dead, or it's going to slowly evolve and limp along. You need to be able to go to your board, you need to go to your CMO, whatever the case is, obviously, and be able to say, listen, here's the return on investment. Now, the challenge with that discussion 4 or 5 years ago is that that methodology didn't exist. And in fact, to the best of my knowledge today, this SMOX methodology we developed is the only one out there that allows a marketer to measure mobile within the broadest of marketing mix, TV, radio, magazines, everything. Now, I'm happy to have somebody challenge that. I haven't had anybody do that yet. I had one person, and they had a methodology, but they couldn't get into the details of mobile, and you'll see what I mean as I explain some of this. Now, we've now raised $3 million. We have done 11 in-market campaigns, or studied 11 in-market campaigns in 4 countries, predominantly in the US. Marketers, all the marketers did US, and then Coca-Cola took the methodology we executed in China, UK, and then also Brazil. That methodology was validated by the ARF, just to keep everything really clean. ANA and 4A's have been our partners on that. These are, in essence, those campaigns. They all had TV. All of them had internet. They had a variety of other media. They also had mobile. And they had mobile because I always get this question, what is mobile? Mobile is mobile video, mobile audio, mobile social, mobile display, or mobile native. It is not mobile search, just for the purposes of this research, for a bunch of reasons. I won't bother to explain. You can ask a question later if that's really important to you, or come up to me afterwards. Here's the results of those studies. We found on a pound per pound basis, on a cost effectiveness basis, that when mobile done right, there's a qualifier, because there's 2, mobile and then mobile done right. When mobile is done right within that campaign, we saw that it should be around anywhere from 12%, the very lowest, probably I'd say 15 to 20% of the total marketing mix. So of that broad TV, radio, magazines, should be 15 to 20%. And when that happens for those campaigns, because we're running, in essence, experimental design within SMOX, that's how it works. So we really have perfect information. We can look at a group of people exposed to a $20 million campaign without mobile. We can look at a group of people, $20 million campaign with mobile. And we determined that the brand effect change was around 17, 18%. That's at the top. Since then, we've done pretty much every campaign has been done on sales. And we see anywhere from, I'd say, around a 15 to 25% increase in sales. One anomaly is the Red Can Coca-Cola campaign that was done in Brazil that had a 60% increase. Now, I can't explain that. Brazil's only got 25% penetration of smartphones. This is a smartphone analysis largely. Why it grew so much, we don't really know, but it was an anomaly in it. Until I saw a campaign last week. Now, I can't disclose, that's a terrible setup, because I can't disclose to you what that campaign really showed. It's not public yet. I don't have permission from the brand. But I'll tell you, I had a board meeting on Thursday. We saw the results on Tuesday, showed it to the board on Thursday, and it's totally reset our expectations of what the value of mobile. Now, I'm not here to sell you mobile, okay? It's going to do fine without this brand's participation or not. The channel's kind of moving in the right direction. We got a lot of things we still need to get right as an industry, make sure as we'd like to be the best marketing channel that you have. But at the end of the day, it also started to highlight something else. In fact, I mean, listen, I could have run this video for you 4 years ago and in some regards backed up that analysis. I mean, you wouldn't have had the exact numbers, but I've said, geez, does mobile really capture attention? I think so. Right? I mean, you all know that, right? I caught myself standing on 42nd Street on 5th Avenue the other day, and I looked up and go, shit, I'm in the middle of the street, and I had no idea kind of how I got here because I was engrossed in my phone. We're all like that, good and bad, of that dynamic. But certainly, it works. And what's smart, yeah, he just keeps on going. That's what's really funny. yeah, you could laugh at that. Yeah. Yeah. What's really funny, though, is that here's what's really amusing about that, because I checked a little background of this story. He works there. He knew where the pool was, but you know, we're like this. TV doesn't do that to me. Magazines doesn't do that. Radio doesn't do that. Nothing does that to me like my phone does. So, nature of the beast. But here's the issue. Here's what really caught our attention. So we've done all these studies. We've been tracking this thing for 3 years. It was complicated to build the methodology, painful, in fact, many times. But then we had this campaign that ran with Unilever. And we started to see this, but this Unilever, and I've got 4 or 5 other slides that are particularly the same point from other more recent campaigns. So here's the Unilever. It's Magnum was the ice cream bar that we were running against. If we take the average of all media, TV, radio, magazines, everything, we just index it at 100 because they don't want to give away their actual data. That particular display ad did 175, did 75% greater impact against, in this case, ad awareness, or aided awareness specifically. But look at the red. 0 on sales. It sucked in sales. Now listen, I'm an advertising guy. I've been doing this for a lot of years. I would have looked at that ad and said, listen, that communicates very well. I think that really represents the brand heritage. It certainly fits into the creative spec. It's a good ad. I would have endorsed it. I would have said, run the ad, and the research on an awareness basis supported that. But here's what's interesting. We then take and layered in, and it might have been obvious, but it's the scale that matters here. They layered in weather data for an ice cream product. Brand awareness went a little bit. That ad, though, went from 0 to plus 50% in value in driving sales. And there's no fucking way you could have known that by looking at it. That's the issue. And yet that's how you're research people, so you will appreciate what I'm saying here. But brand people tend to say, I looked at the ad, I know that it communicates with the consumer. Or as the guy who runs Subway said to me at one point, he says, my sandwiches only look good on TV. Who gives a damn? That's not the point. I don't buy it just because it looks good. I understand that's an element of it, but it's missing the point. I'm not understanding the magnitude. And I watched another one of my CMOs sit on stage with his agency, and he asked the question 3 times, what's the increase in behavioral targeting to my campaign? The agency first said, didn't answer the question, they avoided it. Second question, they said, well, it depends. The third time they finally had to answer it, they said 20, 30%. He goes, that's unfortunate because you're my agency, and it's actually 300% increase when I add behavioral targeting to my advertising in mobile. I know it for a fact now. So the issue is, here's where I'm getting up to. We can no longer expect to look at campaigns. The thesis of the MMA, the thesis of my board, is that we can't look at campaigns and think we know what's going on. And optimization of media, let's remember, is the single greatest return on investment we can have other than creative. Love creative. You can always boost a campaign performance with better creative. Respect that, love that. Not to negate that. But at the end of the day, optimizing media is that opportunity, and we have no mechanism to measure what is now single greatest change in consumer behavior ever mobile. This happens to be our learning agenda for wave 2 of these SMOC studies. I won't bore you with all of that. But think about that. That's all the elements that we're trying to measure in the next couple of campaigns that we're doing, that we've tried to measure so far, we're trying to do more of. And we're only partially away on that journey, partly because the marketers don't really do it. So here's the issue. What happened is that my board stepped in last year and said, oh my God, you must take a leadership role in multi-touch attribution. And I thought, that's great. I love this stuff. I have a media research background. Let's lean in. We're going to go after this. There's all these great tool sets. I know all this great work we've been doing behind SMOCs, which is fundamentally marketing touch attribution. We found out that 34% of marketers are currently using MTA. That's it. We did a broad scale research. We've done it twice, so we have good validation against that number. Now, the interesting news is that 40%, 40 points, plan to add it in the next 18 months. So the competitive landscape here is potentially being resetting. But this is what got our attention in a very big way. That number on the right, that is the Net Promoter Score. That's not a little bullet. That's a negative 29% Net Promoter Score. So of those 34% of marketers that have multi-touch attribution in the household today, or in their companies that are using that solution, they rank it at a negative 29. Anybody here have a negative 29 Net Promoter Score for your business? No, of course not. You'd be out of business. And yet that's what's happening for multi-touch. So what we believe to be the holy grail of marketing measurement, we believe is to be required in order for marketers to basically do their job in communicating to consumers, is failing significantly. And there's a lot of good reasons, you know. I had the CMO of one of the companies say what I thought was the most interesting thing to me. She said, yeah, the problem is, Greg, is that marketers don't have any knowledge how multi-touch attribution works. They're trained for marketing mix modeling, but the statistical modeling is dramatically different for MTA, and they have no background for that. But they said, so as a result, because we're out trying to sell a business, we have to tell them it's easy to get into it, only to find out it isn't, which is why they're so pissed off in the back end. I thought, wow, that's a hell of a way to have to run a business. But that's what they feel like they're in trying to bring these technologies. Of which, by the way, if you didn't notice in the slides there are 19 providers of multi-touch attribution. We asked all of our marketer members as a part of this group, the board, who they knew were out there. We have a list. We can share that list with you if you're really interested. The challenge is they have 25 statistical models that they use in order to measure. Again, back to point A, using statistical models that marketers, as a general rule, don't necessarily know. So last September, we formed a thing called MAT, Marketing Attribution Think Tank. Its first project is to focus on multi-touch attribution. I brought board members from North America board and the global board. Well, MMA is a worldwide organization, so I've got people all over the place. But Sanjay Gupta, based here in Chicago. Yeah. Sanjay. Louise DeComa from Unilever, Lou Pascalos from Bank of America, and Amit Shah from 800 Flowers. So we've got a good diversity. We also brought together all of the board member marketers to help us look at this problem and digest it, try to figure it out. We did what you always do. You set a series of objectives. I'm going to come back to that in a moment here. And like I said, we did some research. Turns out that 34% of people actually, 34% of marketers using it against 35% of their business. They, on average, expect a 14% increase. We know that's now low based on SMOCs. We suspect that's low when we're just optimizing for mobile in a mix. And we also know that there's a lot of differences as to whether or not they really think it's working or not. In fact, it says here that top two box of that it's probably working is 61%, but there's a lot of not sures and probably nots. So even having the tools they don't know, and I happen to know one of my marketer members is now, it's, what are we, 2017? He's on his third multi-touch attribution solution after the first two didn't fail. And those were big names. If I told you the names of the companies, the first two, you go, oh yeah, we know those people. Didn't work. So our objective here is really around helping marketers to select and apply with confidence. Right? We want them to believe in the results. We want them to apply these solutions. And if there is a bias we have, it's towards better measurement. It's towards better truth and really understanding that and having some validation. So listen, we've done a whole bunch of other work, and you know, I don't want to take up all of my time today, so watch that a little bit. But we've now moved into, we finished phase 2, we're moving into phase 3. Phase 2 was we actually went and took responses from the 19 providers. They gave us about 500 pages of feedback to try to understand it. We went through the whole process of what, how, why, what is multi-touch attribution, what is it not. All of this is in my slides here if you want to download those later. You can grab that. I think the fundamental bit is that this is all about an analytical method to measure really small, discrete bits of media marketing as opposed to what's happening in marketing mix modeling where we're measuring large swatches of it. It just doesn't matter for the common age. And one of the studies, one of the analyses we found from doing the SMOCs research, for example, is that within mobile, just running mobile as the brand decided to run it, we'll see increases of, you know, let's say 7 to 12% increase in sales. However, when we do mobile optimize itself, we get mobile right within its own mix, we've often seen that sales double. So again, you can't do that unless you have the sensitivity of the tool that really allows you to go in and look at a small display ad compared with weather data, or that small ad compared to location data, or with behavioral data, or the video ad that then targets users of fast food, or the social media ad that's actually able to go ahead and, or native ad in that case often, to go in and target coupon users, the variety of other things that we've started to look at to try to understand. So, multi-touch attribution is, I think, hopefully many of you realize, I don't know, I always feel funny talking to a research group, you're probably smarter about some of the technical dynamics of this than even I am, although we're getting smarter. Basic science of advanced analytics on user level data, to allocate proportional credit across a granular list of marketing touch points, basically what I said. Measuring small, discrete amounts of media, and to be able to do that against online and offline. And within our documentation, we've actually created a series of frameworks, some scoring systems, and ultimately a whole series of documents and tools that you could use to go figure out your best provider, right? Whether you're an online business or an offline business. So again, I have no real dog in the fight. I don't win if you per se buy multi-touch attribution, except that because I'm driven by the marketers, we like truth in advertising, we like truth in measurement, and all of those elements. So we've done a lot more research. I can talk to you more about that. I don't think I'm going to take time to do that, except to tell you that our final phase here, and it kicked off yesterday, is that we have formed our first of many working groups focused on data quality. If you know anything about multi-touch attribution, you will nod your head at this, which is multi-touch attribution is at first a data project, and then it's an attribution project. And that data project can take anywhere up to a year or more just to get your data aligned. And it's funny because I heard that a lot from some of the earlier speakers talking in different contexts. Same kind of thing. In fact, somebody had a great note up there. They said it's not having data, it's having quality data. I think there's some variation of that that really caught my attention. I think they're totally right on that. If you're interested, if you're a big brand marketer, you're interested in the topic, you want to kind of throw into this, we'd love to have you. We're creating a whole bunch of frameworks like this, which is basically trying to articulate what is the data. We just showed this to the global board last week. It's the first map we've seen of where all these data sources are coming from. We think it's a pretty good articulation of feedback. We're going to work to perfect that as a group because that's fundamentally what trade groups. The next one we're going after is really focused on walled gardens. Fundamentally, there's a real problem. It's nice we have this digital, but if they put up a wall, or as they like to tell me, it's a very low hedge. That if you don't have access to that information, understand how things are working together, you are in the kind of the same place as before. And so with that, I will go right back to where I started, which we do think mobile is unique and powerful. If we could play this last video, you can get a sense of just how powerful it can be.
I can watch live TV on my new Sprint phone. Well, my Sprint phone has TV and downloads music. I can check email. I have that. And crime deterrent. What? Trying to take my wallet. Get it.
Live TV, wireless music downloads, email, and crime deterrent.
I'm filing a grievance, Ben.
Probably fairly inappropriate in today's age, but I apologize for that. So listen, thank you. I hope all that's helpful, and I'm happy to answer any questions if necessary.
You took us through a lot there, Greg. Any questions? Want to see some more videos, maybe?
Did you memorize it all? Nobody's using multi-touch attribution now in the room? You, a little bit? Probably just in digital, not in all media? Yeah. Yeah, I see a lot in digital, but I think the issue is being able to figure out how you optimize. I actually have asked a research company if we could do the analysis to figure out is the optimization just done within digital, then counterproductive to optimizing against all media? Or does it give us different signals? Does it give us different direction? And I don't know the answer yet. I'm not sure if it would. I don't know how to think that problem through. I'd be curious to know what the data shows. Yeah.
I do notice in my clients' campaigns that when I run a display image ad across Google networks and then tag them with remarketing, sales do pop out in unexpected ways. And I did attend a multi-touch attribution session with Google engineers this past November at their annual summit. And I know that they're tinkering with it. And I know that, as you reported, many, many companies just can't get their arms around it. And it's, they're stuck on last touch attribution. Yeah. They don't really want to go to the other models. But the models are there if they're willing to take the risk and experiment.
Okay. One of the learnings, I'm going to answer your question a little bit sideways, so I'll come back to it. One of the studies, I didn't show the slide, I've got a lot of stuff I could do on SMOCs, or insights on SMOCs. One of the studies, though, proved absolutely conclusively that there is no relationship between click-through and sales. None whatsoever. If you are using click-through, you are kidding yourselves. And I'm sure there's people here who think that's a bit of a religious war and would argue it out. And maybe your business is different, but I'm telling you, for the big brands we looked at, there is no relationship. And yet, it has become the primary measure. And that's what we optimize against because it is what we have. And I guess my thesis is that, and with the MMA's point of view, is that it's just not enough. It's just not enough. We need to understand the brand effect, or we got to go all the way through to sales. And that's what we do. We measure all the way through to sales offline and look at that, and that's where the real power comes from. So I think, listen, I can juice it. I'm a digital marketer. I can juice a click. I know how to write an ad that sort of makes that happen, and I've kidded myself. I haven't really accomplished the goal. Any other questions? No? Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, so in terms of the fact that you feel that in terms of the fact that you feel last touch is overemphasized, which I agree with you, of course. What are the metrics that we should look at in terms of how do you counteract that?
Yeah.
What are the metrics that are most meaningful to multi-touch?
Yeah. So I think that's a multi-layered answer. So if you listen to a guy like a Pete Fader over at Wharton, right, he has really put a stake in the ground and said it's all about lifetime value. To measure anything else is stupid. Brands say I can't measure lifetime value. He says I don't give a shit. Figure it out. You know, so that's been his thesis, and Pete's a smart guy. They think about those things a lot. Certainly sales, I think sort of frontline sales, initial sales. Some companies, one of the projects that the MMA has tried to execute and we have not yet been successful on is trying to define a series of KPIs that are proxies to sales, understand the relationship to sales, but are further downstream than, say, click-through, which isn't even available for most media anyway. So I actually think I have a breakthrough on that project, and so you may be hearing us talk about that. But I think we have figured it out. And some of them are kind of obvious. So I mentioned I launched cars.com, right? Auto people, if you talk to them, they really believe that if you can get a test drive, you have a close relationship to sale. Now, a test drive is an optimizable event. I don't think it's so far down into the future that you couldn't be able to do some metrics around that, I think. The problem is what defines a test drive? Well, what's interesting is now with mobile, not the communications channel, let's just ignore that for a moment. This is the sensor that tells me, I know somebody went to a dealership, I know they stayed there for 5 minutes, I know they left for 10 to 20 minutes, I know they came back. It's either lunch or a test drive. I'll go with either, but I still have a definable event. So I think the issue is that we've got to start to think through, and what Smox is highlighting across the broad brands that we worked with is that it's no longer, click-through became a convenient measure that our agencies, did because it was easy to push against clients. It's the wrong idea. We should be thinking about what's the key metric for our business that really matters. And for each one of them, I think is different. And my sense is that from listening to my CMO board members, I don't think we know. Sometimes we maybe know, I feel like we don't most of the time. That's my sense of it. So, but you got to figure that out because it's critical to success. Listen, remember what happens with optimization, right? There's two greatest single returns on investment in marketing. Better creative. You might pay a little more for creative talent. You might have to run more options and maybe do more testing. I get that, but minor to the cost of media or media optimization. It's free money. It doesn't cost you anything. Execution and staff maybe to work against it, but it's free gains. And if you're talking here, and like I said, I've sort of alluded to it, and maybe I'll close with this and turn it back over to you. So the study that we saw last week from Smox doubled sales. $20 million campaign, no mobile, $20 million campaign with mobile. I measure mobile, so you know I'm fine to optimize other stuff, and I'm not here to say mobile's going to thing. But when we got that right, we saw sales double. What's your plan for sales double? What is it? That doesn't, oh, and by the way, there's parameters. You can't spend more money, you can't do any CapEx, you can't change the position, and you can't even recast the messaging. Because I got a plan for doubling sales because I've seen it happen in the research. That's the idea of these tools, but it's got to be able to get into that intimate level in our experience that really is going to make a difference. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks, everyone. Slides will be available to you.